Hi friends, and welcome back to the Meditative Aiden YouTube channel, where we talk about mindfulness and mindful tools, tips, and tricks to help you learn how to work through the challenges and experiences of everyday life. Today we're going to be talking about the actual definition of mindfulness. This is a topic that we've kind of broached upon a few times, but the reason that I want to go over this in greater depth today is because mindfulness has a much more sophisticated meaning than might be apparent at the outset. So in today's video, we're going to talk about a few of the definitions that are circling around right now. I'm going to use an analogy to kind of explain why those definitions do and don't work. And then I'm going to go into some more of the actual characteristics of mindfulness and some of the virtues that underlie it. So to start off with the two definitions, the first definition that usually comes to mind when I think about mindfulness is more of a scientific definition, which says that it's just an intense concentration. And this is the way it's usually defined, especially when we're talking about people, 2,000 years ago. When they talk about mindfulness back then, a lot of the times people will say mindfulness was just people sitting down to contemplate and reflect in a really intensely concentrated way. Now, the other definition is kind of spiritual in nature because it refers to those same people that, are 2,000 years ago. It refers to them in a more contemplative practice. And this definition describes mindfulness as an intense focus and sense of contemplation in the present moment that's centered on the present moment. Now, the reason that these two are different is because on the one hand, one of them is just saying that mindfulness is intense concentration. On the other, it's saying that it's a reflective and contemplative practice. Now, neither of these definitions is necessarily wrong, but they don't give us the big picture in total. Now, to really exemplify this, we'll use an analogy, like a fire in your backyard. Now, for however common it is for you to have fires in your backyard, this symbolically represents the challenges that you face in day-to-day life. Now, the scientific definition says that if there is a fire in your backyard, you just focus on it intensely. The issue with this is that you're putting in the wrong kind of effort in the right place. So you're focusing on that fire in your backyard, on that symbolic stress that you're facing. The issue is that you're not bringing to that the tools necessary to work through that, to actually extinguish the fire, to find that sense of peace. Similarly, the more spiritual definition is in reference to that analogy. It's like bringing a bucket of water and waiting around for that fire to happen. It's kind of like carrying a several pound bucket of water. You're bringing the right tools, but you don't have it at the right time. You're kind of waiting around for a fire to happen. And the truth is with that this, fire, this challenge that you may be facing might not necessarily be at the time that the spiritual definition suggests. Now, what this means is that we need something that bridges the gap, that brings it together. So I'll tell you what mindfulness is not. It's not either the scientific or the spiritual definition alone. It's both of them combined. What this means is that when that fire is occurring in your backyard, you are intensely focused on the present moment, that fire there in that moment, while bringing that contemplative and reflective practice to that moment. What this means is that you're able to focus on the situation at hand while utilizing some of those more spiritual practices to help you work through that experience. So what this means is that when you approach these situations, you're approaching it with that sense of contemplation, that sense of concentration, but you're bringing in the virtues of mindfulness. Some of those virtues include things like non-judgement, acceptance, open-mindedness, and loving curiosity. So what it means to bring non-judgment to this situation, to this challenge you're facing, means that when you come to experience this fire, you are with it in the present moment, but you're bringing in that reflective practice, saying that you are not judging this fire, you're not identifying with it. This is something we've talked about to a lot of depth over the past couple of weeks. Why this is so important is because it keeps you from identifying with the fire, saying that this fire is happening because of me. The reason the open-mindedness is so important is because that fire might have occurred for any number of reasons, and it might have any number of potential influences that it's having on your backyard, the backyard of your mind. So this sense of open-mindedness helps you approach the situation without the desire to really fix it or try to solve it or get too involved in it, and rather to be open to whatever the experience is about. An example, this means that when you are stressed, this fire in your backyard, you're approaching it with the mindset of, whatever I learn from this is what I learn from this. Whatever reason this is happening, I'm going to be open to understanding why this is happening. What about loving kindness though? That's kind of a weird one. I mean, when it comes to approaching these situations and this metaphorical fire, coming to it with love doesn't sound like a very intuitive thing to do. But like we talked about last week in last week's episode, the reason that bringing this sense of loving awareness, this loving kindness to it, the reason it's so important is because it helps you take this mindfulness one step further. It adds depth to mindfulness. And what this does is it helps you kind of transcend your egoic boundaries. It helps you take a step beyond yourself to look at the situation and really see what is going on and what part of you needs nurturing there. So to this effect, I'd like to give you an example in my own life. Now, I talk a lot about stress and depression and all these things, but I'm going to use anger this time and some instances when I get really frustrated to the point of anger. And often this happens, when I'm driving and someone cuts me off, all too often actually. And in this instance, that fire blazes really quickly and really, really fast. But when I come to that situation with mindfulness and mindful awareness, and I bring open-mindedness, I bring curiosity and love, and I bring that sense of non-judgment, it allows me to see that the situation is occurring. It allows me to see where this is coming from inside of me and why it's happening. One thing I really love that Dr. Cox says on the Headspace blog is that mindfulness is also effortless. What this means can be kind of likened to, as he describes, when you notice a cloud in the sky, when you notice things happening, there's no effort in you noticing those things. And you don't immediately look at that cloud and start judging it and start making up all these stories about it. I mean, you might look up at it and say that it looks like a turtle or Sasquatch or something like that. But when it comes to mindfulness, when you notice events happening, you notice it effortlessly, which also means that you're noticing it with that sense of open-mindedness, with that sense of love and compassion that allows you to just open up to that experience. So when experiences occur, when this metaphorical flame occurs, you notice it just like you notice that cloud, without effort and without any sense of judgment or telling any stories about it. So all of this comes together to concisely define mindfulness as the art and practice of applying non-judgmental, lovingly curious, open-minded awareness to a certain situation in the present moment. What this does is it gives you the ability to come to an awareness of everything that's occurring without involving yourself in it. What this means is that when situations occur, you're able to give yourself some time to respond to it, as we've talked about before. Now, the reason that, again, it's so important to nail down this definition is to ensure that you're working towards the right thing, to make sure that as you develop mindfulness, you're not going towards just that scientific perspective or just that spiritual perspective, but that you're combining them to really get the full effect of what mindfulness can do for you. I really hope that you guys kind of get an understanding of why this definition is so important and why it's so important to work towards that in particular. I know that as I've kind of come to a better understanding of the actual definition of mindfulness, it's helped me learn what to work towards and how I'm doing on my progress towards that goal. I know that this can have a similarly powerful impact on you because just like anything, when you have a clear picture of what it is you're working towards, it makes it that much easier to work towards it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please let me know by, making a comment below, subscribing. Make sure to follow and like us on Instagram and Facebook as well. And you can also listen to this on a podcast, which will be coming out on your favorite podcasting platform. Thanks again so much for joining me today, and I hope you guys have a great day.